Okay, well, I'm going to put my glasses on, Rachel, so I can see.
Right.
I am putting all this together. It looks like we are live now on Facebook. It'll pull up on my screen. I'll be able to interact with folks. But like I told you, when I reached out in email and in text, the whole reason why I'm doing this project is I'm trying to capture two things simultaneously. Number one is, they always say it's important to journal, and I'm a student of history. And so at any given time of any history book I've ever read, it's because somebody in that time wrote down what they were thinking or what was going on. So for me and our family, just like when I was in Iraq and I kept a journal and wrote stuff down every day to share with the girls when I got back, this is a video journal in many regards of just daily interviews with people that I find fascinating. Secondly, and this is more to the point of our conversation, which is when I was building Ride Scout, I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. When I was in combat and we were taking over for the unit before us, I didn't know the area very well. Anything I've ever done for the first time, and certainly COVID qualifies as something we've done for the first time and haven't really done this as a community, I ask a lot of questions. And the difference with this one is, well, if I'm going to ask a lot of questions and the people that I'm asking, people like you are smart, learned folks with a lot of great things to say, why not share it and share it in real time? So this is live on Facebook. And if people are tuning in here as they're sitting at their house, having a cup of coffee, or maybe they're working from home or whatever they might be doing, hopefully they'll gain something from the conversation. And so with that, let me introduce you to folks that are listening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rachel Charlesworth, one of my dear friends, colleagues, fits in a whole lot of different categories. I know I've known Rachel for a long time because when I look her up in my contacts, there's like 6 or 7 different emails, because she was with the very early days of Ride Scout when our email was ridescoutapp.com. And then it was ridescout.com. And then it became movable.com. And then she's gone on to do a lot of other great things since leaving Ride Scout Movable era back in the New York City, but not necessarily in the New York City area today as we're still doing this Facebook Live, but a whole lot to share. And I'm just going to turn it over to you, Rachel, just to say a quick hello, how you got to now, and tell the audience what you've been up to in the last couple of years since you and I left working together. And then we'll take the conversation from there. But the very first thing is, how are you doing? How's your family? How's everybody's health and kind of living conditions? So take it from there.
Everyone's doing okay. I think this is really like the first week where things have sort of like now settled in a little bit to this new reality. And that's for me personally, because as of Saturday, I'm not in New York City anymore. I'm at a family home in New Jersey, a beach house. And funny story of how I got down here, actually, Joseph. I bought a car to go.
You bought a car to go?
I bought a car to go.
So that was from the Brooklyn office, I presume?
Yeah. So, also owned by Mercedes-Benz, which acquired Ride Scout. So I don't know, about a month and a half ago, when I heard that car to go was pulling out of the US, I reached out to some people that we both know about buying a smart car, and it all went down a couple weeks ago. So
by the way, is it still labeled as a car to go?
No, it's just white.
Okay, so they took off all the stickers.
But yeah. So I'm a proud owner of a car to go, also known as my getaway car.
Okay, so we were going back to your safety. So you're in Jersey, family house, beach house. By the way, I love the artwork, and I see the chairs there for going out on your porch. You even have the flag behind you. I mean, you couldn't be more iconic American. And that kind of leads in nicely to Icono, which is your current project. So tell folks a little bit about what you're working on, because what I'm also hoping through this conversation, if there's entrepreneurs that are listening who are struggling with what their company is doing, maybe they're having to pivot, maybe they're a small business. They used to do one thing, now they got to shift and pivot and do something else, either because their business has gone away or they want to help in this era of COVID. So what do you recommend for them and their messaging and getting that out? Because I know that's the business that you're in now.
Yeah. So, since we worked together, for the last 2 years now, I've been consulting with pretty early stage startups on brand strategy, messaging strategy, and really launching new companies or relaunching, products.
And for folks that are brand new, do you want to explain the difference kind of between, what is brand? What is marketing? How is that different than sales? Because people oftentimes confuse all that.
So brand, I really consider like the foundation of the marketing house of, how can you build a strong foundation from the beginning, know who you are. So marketing is about bringing in customers. It's about channels. It's about optimization. Brand is about understanding who you are so that marketing can scale faster.
And didn't you tell me recently, I remember writing it down, something to the effect of brand is who you are when you're not in the room, or something clever like that. What did you
Yeah,
say?
yeah. So, really what Icono is kind of taking now what I've done with companies and what we did with Ride Scout and kind of the brand strategy realm for businesses, and kind of taking that knowledge for individuals. So, kind of refer to that as personal brand. Personal brand can kind of get a little bit of a weird association of like, what is this thing? Is it this version of reputation of this lawyer, in his office in a suit? Is it Instagram influence?
Yeah,
And
and it's
I
kind
think
of
of
like
personal
the
brand.
negative. Yeah, it's kind of like the negative tone that networking used to have, say 5 or 10 years ago, in which
Mm,
now we all recognize you have to be networking. So personal brand may have had kind of a, ooh, what the heck is a personal brand? But in
yeah.
reality, you have to have a brand. You have a brand, whether you know it or not, and whether you declare it or not, that is your brand.
Exactly. And I like to think of personal brand as like, how can you communicate your work, your mission, like the work that you're looking to do when you're not in the room. And so it's been kind of an interesting time now. Obviously, we can't be in the room together. So how do you
Yeah.
kind of communicate your work and the work that you want to be doing and have other people repeat that for you? So that's what I think of it as personal brand, really owning and understanding your work and the work that you want to be doing.
Interesting. Okay. So
Mm,
you made reference to it. We're no longer now necessarily able to be face to face with people. We don't know if this is going to be 4 more weeks, 4 more months, what the new normal looks like. So what are you doing as a company, as a entity, as a brand? And
yeah.
then what do you recommend for others as they consider a pivot, and how might they, reach out to you and all that? But let's first talk about how you're thinking of the pivot,
Yeah.
and then how others can think of it.
Yeah, so how I kind of started was actually around headshots and photography. So was thinking about personal brand and how can you communicate your work better through a photo? And a headshot really shouldn't just be like a photo that you look good in. It should actually say something and help you actually communicate your work. So back in September, started to do these headshot pop-ups in New York City. Have had about 100 people come through for those pop-ups. Have started to work with pretty big brands on kind of team shoots as well. And then obviously earlier this month that
And
all
yeah,
flatlined.
but let me. I'm going to interrupt because you bring up a great
Mm,
point that companies miss all the time, and it's something very simple. Between a website with your whole team that has 15 different picture types with 15 different backgrounds, and basically what that says is, oh, we're all over the place. We're all on a different, platitude. Da, da, da. However, when it's a series of photos, even when they were working remotely or in
mhm.
different locations across the country, if it's a brand of similar looking photos, it has a more inclusive team feel. Uh,
Totally.
yeah,
It's like
I just thought that.
intentionality and storytelling. Yeah. And I mean, it's not necessarily for every business, but especially if you're a services based organization for you, like Greyline, like your product is your people.
Yeah,
So cohesion and storytelling across those photos of your product, it's super important.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I interrupted you when you pointed out. So that's what
Yeah.
you were doing up until about 6 weeks ago. So
Yeah.
now, what are you thinking, and what goes or
Yeah.
changes going forward?
So, I mean, I think it's sort of getting the back to the basics of like, what am I looking to do with this business? Like the idea of these headshots, it was never really the whole picture.
Right.
What I'm really looking to do is how do you communicate your work when you're not in the room? So, if the photo is a representation of what that thing is, now we're getting back to basics of helping people define what that thing is. So, defining what that personal brand is. So now for the last few weeks have been doing kind of personal brand coaching sessions with folks, to kind of get an understanding of what their own hesitation or friction might be when they're kind of creating their own story, and kind of working through other sort of growable processes of how other people can do this themselves. So I am running these personal brand sessions right now, totally free for folks.
Excellent. Okay. And
Yeah.
before I go into how people connect with that, Nick Freshman, by the way, popped on and says hello.
Oh,
So
hey.
back in the day, you showed him all the hot spots. He was an early investor in Ride Scout. And so thank you, Nick, for your faith and confidence in Rachel and I and the work of the whole Ride Scout team. So you mentioned that you're now doing personal branding. How can people find you to be able to kind of connect with you, to be able to be a part of these review sessions?
Yeah, so there's a link on Icono's website, helloicono.com, with a link to these free sessions.
Connect with, I'm going to write that down in real time. Connect with
Cool.
Rachel. So while I'm doing that, walk us through what a typical session's like. So if someone's a little timid or shy about connecting with you, what are the kind of questions? What do you do? How's it work?
Yeah, so so there's sort of a background worksheet that folks fill out to varying degrees, but it's sort of just kind of laying on the line. What's your past experience? What are you looking to do, and why are you the person to do it?
Right.
And then essentially we go through that together. And what I'm really looking for, and you are such a good example of someone that, like you innately knew how to do this for yourself. Really good, a really good personal brand is actually all about like tension. A good story has tension. Like if it's perfect, it's boring. So for you, like it was such an interesting example because you were transitioning when you started Ride Scout. You were transitioning from, like Army leader, 20 plus years, like knowing exactly what you're doing, to totally new identity as a founder. And we were talking recently, you were thinking about that and signaling of like how do other people pick up what you're putting down. And for you, some of that signaling was actually through what you were wearing and the hat that you used to wear every single day. That wasn't just like a style thing. That was a signal of your like transition from the Army to the entrepreneurship world.
Well, you all were always kind of trying to teach, coach, and mentor me through this idea of branding, what it meant, but it was at a conference. It was a transportation conference. Early on, I was up in Detroit. I'll never forget where I was standing, looking down the escalators, getting ready to figure out, do I go to this room or that room to shake hands, kiss babies, pass out business cards? And somebody walked up and said, "Hey, are you the Ride Scout guy?" And I'm like, who the hell knows me and how the hell they know I'm the Ride Scout guy? And I looked, my little name tag had the little tiny print, Joseph and Ride Scout. I said, "Yes, as a matter of fact." And I said, but how do you know? And he goes, "Oh, the baseball cap." And I was like, genius. And that thing didn't leave my head for 4 years. And as you know, you made me do an oil change and buy new hats occasionally because that sucker never came off my head. But that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. And it doesn't have to be just that. As you say, it's attention. It's to show that you're a little bit different, not perfect, not manufactured, but you're you.
Yeah. And people have to get it, right? So the tension actually helps people connect with your story. So for you, it really was that that tension of, like that transition to a new identity as an entrepreneur. And you had to kind of sell that over and over again. And that wasn't, again, like that wasn't manufactured. That wasn't like, here's what I'm going to be. It's like, this is where I want to go. So let me create a path to get there.
Yeah.
So what we're doing in these sessions is really kind of like, and I say we, I mean me.
Good. Hey,
the royal we. So essentially like pulling out different elements of like what your background is, where you're looking to go, where can we build out this tension? And then how can we develop essentially 3 to 5 talk tracks of, like what can be your messages that you're saying over and over again, which again, truly I learned from you. You don't need to have, like to actually have 50 or 100 ideas is actually really confusing to your audience. What are those, 3 to 5 ideas to begin with that you can begin to communicate over and over again so people can begin to repeat that for you. So at the end of those sessions, that's really kind of like what we're developing, the tension in your story that people can connect to, and then like 3 to 5 talk tracks that you can repeat.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I hope people take advantage of that. Now, related to your previous point about companies and yourself having to pivot and rebrand, are you seeing companies out there that are either shifting their message, shifting in their brand, or using their current brand and really amplifying under these times? Are there any good examples that you want to point entrepreneurs or small businesses towards to look at as a model?
Oh man. I mean, I think like 90% of businesses are pivoting right now. And if you don't have to, I mean, it's a pretty lucky place to be in. I think a really interesting example is my co-working space, which I am truly obsessed with. And I really feel the loss of right now, called The Wing. which is they're in a few different cities.
Yeah, I'm
But
gonna look that up real quick and post it in there. The wing.
yeah, yeah. So a co-working space specifically designed for women, but what they do exceptionally well, like truly better than any other thing I've been a part of, is really the idea of like connectivity and community. So how do you do that? When I think number one, obviously you can't be in the physical space, but number two, I don't know about you. I like want to be consuming all of this content right now, but I'm also like totally overwhelmed by the
Yeah.
amount of content that is out there right now. So
Yep.
it's like, what do you join?
So yesterday, I'm sorry, I just want to interrupt real quick. Yesterday,
Yeah.
one of my guests said something that I marveled at. I just thought was genius. And of course, he's a smart guy, which is why he said it, which is, one of the best things that we can do right now, if you're not on the front lines and you're not out there having to be in hospitals or be, on the front lines of keeping our lights on, if you're in that category of everybody else, there is some value to just sitting back and pausing and waiting and
100%.
relaxing and not trying to over process. Anyway, that was Art Markman that said that. But so to your point, there's a ton of content. That's where I interrupted you. Please proceed.
But to that point, I think there is a little bit of a backlash right now against kind of like hustle culture. It's almost like we've now, like with COVID, it's like, how can we hustle faster and further right now, do all of the things that we say that we want to do. And to some degree, like we need to just recognize like we're still who we are. And like, like if I don't really like to run, like I'm not going to become a marathon runner in this next month. Like I'll probably keep doing the yoga that I do normally. You know what I mean? You don't become a different person.
Amy
but anyway,
Amy showed me a meme yesterday. And apparently Gwyneth Paltrow said that now is a perfect time to learn a new language or perhaps write a book. And the rest of the meme was a woman said, and I've got crumbs down my bra that I don't know where they came from. And I don't know what day of the week it is. I don't think I'm writing a book.
Yeah. But anyway, what the Wing is doing really, really well is essentially they've taken all of their events. They put on these like really incredible events, have like very strong partnerships with the New York Times, with HBO, and starting to put them online. But rather than it just sort of being like willy-nilly, like everything, they've actually like really streamlined all of their events where there's maybe like 2 a day, and they are incredibly high quality. So, like an interview with 2 New York Times reporters about the state of politics right now. Actually, Katie Couric is interviewing their founder this evening, which I definitely want to join just because.
What time is that today?
Oh, I think it's only for members. But,
that's fine. I put the link for the Wing on there anyway. So if you are a member of the Wing or you're thinking of joining it virtually now is the time to do it. So
yeah. And I don't know about you, but I also think like routine is like super important right now. I'm like trying to really create routine. I
even shaved today. I once again put on a shirt,
Yeah. I can rebel against routine a little bit sometimes. Like, unlike you, don't have that military background of like, like routine. But finding that, like especially as an independent operator, solo founder, and a consultant, routine is like incredibly important.
Yeah. In fact, one of my earliest videos that I did, because in the very beginning of these video series, and by the way, you're number 13 in all these video interviews.
Lucky number.
The whole reason why I started them was I was seeking that advice. I mean, the first was, with Nancy Giordano saying, what happens in the future? She's a strategic futurist. I wanted to know. And then by interview, I think it was 4 with Mara Neville Thomas, it was about time management, because I just felt overwhelmed here. I had no commute now, no travel. I was in the house with all the girls and the puppies. And I was just like, wait, I got more time than I've ever had. And yet I feel like I'm getting less done. It's because of distractions. And so it's less about even creating a new routine, which we all had to, but it was how to reduce the distractions. So if anybody's interested, then go back in, I'll post the blog of the collection of all these videos to go back and see her advice.
And it's like reducing distractions, but also like generating energy, I think it's been hard for me to like momentum feels hard to get into momentum. And it's like, I have to generate my own energy rather than, getting energy from the subway, from my co-working space, from all of these other people, which is its own learning.
For years, I've called that the alarm clock test, which is when the alarm clock goes off, do you get out of bed immediately? Do you turn it off and go charge it into your day? Or do you hit snooze because whatever you're facing during the day, you're not really too fired up about? Well, now I have to kind of modify that messaging, which is in many ways, it's understandable that you're setting the alarm later because you don't have that 35, 40-minute commute or that hour, to get ready or whatever it is. And so you have that extra time, but to your point, does that extra time suck away the motivation? Does it suck away the momentum? And, I don't know, everybody's got to answer that for themselves and how they manage it. But I think you're right though, about routines, some kind of routine to establish that. So let's pivot for a second before we lose too much time here, because I want to keep these short. But what are you doing? What's a tip or a technique or a recommendation that you picked up from others that you found to be helpful? I know you're there with your sister, maybe something that she's decided on or you've figured out that we can share with others.
Well, creating routine for myself in the morning. So yoga every day. And I also have a daily practice actually with a friend from Austin who now lives in San Francisco of a daily happiness practice. We've actually been doing this for 3 years of a daily email every day, Monday through Friday. We send back and forth 3 things that we're grateful for. So awesome time to make that happen with a friend from afar, really anyone that you don't live with.
That's excellent.
And then I think secondarily, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when I saw you. I think it's a good time for coaching, to like seek a coach, whether that's a formal relationship or an informal relationship. I have a coach and I find it incredibly valuable. And I just recently also joined the coaching platform Walden, which is super cool. It's like an easy way to find a coach for like a side project, for a business, or really just for your work.
I'm gonna look that up. Is that Hello Walden? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what it is, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's just like seeking the support that you feel like you need, like whatever that is. For me, I think it is architecting that support for myself because I don't work directly with a structured team. So I kind of have to build that out myself.
Well, that is a great point that I hope people take, which is maybe this isn't quite Gwyneth Paltrow write a book, but this is certainly, hey, while there is a pause in the action, we don't know how long it is a great time for coaching. It is a great time for learning new things. So excellent. All right. So we're wrapping up. Anything I didn't ask you that you wish you would have mentioned or I would have asked you or that you want to share with folks?
I just think
advice on the way out.
Don't forget your solopreneur friends or your freelance friends. Like if they're operating solo, just reach out.
Great point. That's a great news to end on. And what I like to end on with all of these interviews and discussions, first of all, thank you for being a part of this. I can't do it without interesting guests like yourself who are willing to go live and share your experiences, both good and bad, with others. But really, there's 3 tiers of people that we always want to keep in mind. First and foremost are the people on the front line, those caregivers, those emergency first responders, police, fire, EMS that have to go out and find people when they're not well and then take them to the hospitals and the locations where people that are not just COVID, but also routinely and acutely sick right now. Keep them all in your thoughts and prayers. The second group is that group which today, the new numbers of unemployment, 6 million more people applied for unemployment, bringing to a number that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. So it's important to remember those people who are suddenly now out of work, stressed out, trying to figure out where they're going. And that third group, the group that I'm focused on, because that's where my skill set is, are those people that do still have a business, that are still struggling to try to make ends meet and are still trying to figure out how to pivot what they're doing in order to stay, as they say, keep calm and motor on. In this particular case, the lessons that you provided today, Rachel, might help some of them. The links that I put in there, I'll ship this over to LinkedIn as well. And hopefully others will tune in, if not today, later on, to be able to pick up some of this wisdom. And for that, Rachel, thank you for being a part of this today.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.
All right, you too.